001. The massive alien vessel emerged into view outside the windows of the lunar diplomatic station. Jonah gazed up at the colossal black form, its presence blotting out the stars, stirring a surge of mixed emotions within him. 07. As Earth saw Chief Ambassador. The weight of this first contact rested squarely on his shoulders. He inhaled deeply, steadying his nerves, just as the airlock connected with a heavy thunk. 026. The towering forms of the arriving Vraks filled the chamber as the inner doors slid open. Their dark brown exoskeletons shimmered under the artificial lights, and their bulbous blue eyes studied the humans with an unreadable gaze. 038. The lead alien, Ambassador Grax, extended a clawed appendage in greeting. Jonah hesitantly shook. It dots 045. Through translation algorithms, Grax declared that they came in peace and wished to establish a mutually beneficial relationship. 052. But the negotiations didn't unfold the way Jonah had hoped. Grax insisted on gaining access to humanity's asteroid mining belts and demanded tribute payments to the Vraxian Empire. 1. When Jonah objected, explaining that humanity could not simply surrender sovereign territory, Grax's tone suddenly changed. 114. Consider this a generous offer, Grax said condescendingly. Given our technological superiority, Jonah bit back a retort, mind racing for a way to de-escalate the situation. 121. Later that evening, diplomats convened an emergency video call with world leaders back on Earth. Their demands are outrageous and set a dangerous precedent, declared the Chinese premier. 136. We must stand firm or we risk becoming tributary vassals, the Russian president agreed. 142. Debate erupted, crossing cultural and ideological lines. Jonah raised his hand. Antagonizing them could lead to war. I say we push for further dialogue, find common ground. 156. But the next meeting with Grax went worse. No matter how Jonah framed the alternatives, the alien remained fixated on tribute and territorial rights. 203. When Jonah held his ground, Grax's blue eyes suddenly flared red, a sign of anger unfamiliar to human diplomats. Do not test our patience, Ambassador, Grax warned. Your world depends on our goodwill. 218. Jonah ended the A session with a bitter taste in his mouth, dreading the message he'd now have to deliver. That night he paced the station, wrestling with the impossible decision ahead. 231. Should humanity stand and fight to show the galaxy who they truly are, or yield to tyranny? 237. He heard footsteps. Captain S entered, face grim. Grax just delivered an ultimatum. Accept their terms within 1 solar day or face consequences. 249. Jonah's heart sank. 257. In an emergency session, view screens filled with tense faces as Jonah briefed world leaders. Shouts erupted. 304. No option was without cost, each one more dangerous than the last. 311. Then the elderly UN Secretary-General spoke, slowly and deliberately. My friends, violence will gain us nothing, but surrender will cost us everything. 319. I propose we send one final message. If any harm comes to humanity, the response will be swift, overwhelming, and absolute. 325. A hush fell over the room. One by one, nations agreed. This was their last chance. Peace through strength. 341. The Vraks' demands spread like wildfire across the solar system. On Earth, massive crowds filled the streets chanting, "No tribute, off our world." 357. Even hardened military analysts admitted humanity couldn't repel a full-scale assault. 404 Jonah, exhausted after another round of failed talks, watched the broadcasts with heavy eyes. Grax remained unyielding. 411. Earth's resources are essential for the survival of our empire, Grax said. The mention of force cast a grim silence over the room. 418. Back on the station, Captain S delivered a somber update. Social. Media's exploding with calls for war. Governments are debating military strikes. 425. In another UN session, chaos reigned. "We cannot concede further," the Chinese premier shouted. 446. A small deterrent strike could trigger catastrophe, warned the Russian president. "Our people will never accept subjugation," the Indian foreign minister added. 501. Jonah urged diplomacy again, but he knew time was running out. 8. He stood at the station's viewport, eyes locked on the alien warship looming in space. He prayed this final attempt would be enough. 514. But to Grax, the human message was not a warning. It was a threat, one his pride and power could not ignore. 521. On the Vrax command ship, rage twisted Grax's expression. "They dare threaten the Vrax Empire?" he growled. 528. His eyes burned red. "Launch the entire assault fleet. I want every human, colony wiped from the stars." 544. The sub-commander rushed to obey. Within minutes, hundreds of Vrax ships powered up across the armada. 552 crews scrambled to battle stations. Engines roared to life. 606. The full force of the Vrax military veered toward the moon on an intercept course. Weapons primed. Targets locked. 612. Inside the lunar station, alarms screamed. "Sir, they've changed course. They're heading straight for the moon bases," cried Captain S. 626. Jonah didn't flinch. "Prepare the countermeasure. Decloak only one dreadnought," he ordered. "Let Earth and the galaxy see who we really are." 632. Through the viewport, a faint flare of light emerged from behind Earth's shadow. 638. On the bridge of the ESN Phoenix, Commander Vasquez watched the enemy fleet appear on sensors. 645. Over 500 enemy contacts closing fast. "All hands to battle stations," she said, voice steady. 7. Around Commander Aoki, the crew sprang into action. Blast doors sealed, armor plating engaged with a deep hum, and the ship came alive with urgency. 707. Charge main kinetic barriers, plasma lances to standby, rocket pods ready for intercept. "Maneuvers," she commanded. 716. The deck rumbled beneath them as the engines roared, hurling the Phoenix from geosynchronous orbit in a burst of golden light. 721. Through the forward windows, Earth shrank at an alarming rate. The automated piloting system tilted the dreadnought upward, executing a tight spin to lock onto its intercept vector. 733. By the time the first Vrax vessels exited lunar orbit, the Phoenix would already be in position, waiting. 740. Aboard the lead Vrax cruiser, Grax stared at the sensor display in disbelief. "One ship? Accelerating alone? To engage?" 746. "Impossible," he spat. "No single vessel can withstand hundreds." 755. "All ships!" he roared. "Concentrate fire! Crush that eyesore!" 803 across the fleet, targeting systems locked in. Lances of plasma and concentrated energy surged forward. 810. But the blasts flickered harmlessly against shimmering invisible shields, barriers far more advanced than anything the Vrax had seen. 823. On board the Phoenix, Commander Aoki watched the incoming storm with cold precision. "Damage report." 830. "Shields at 99%, replied the sensors officer. 839. For any other ship, the barrage would have meant instant destruction. but the Phoenix could endure a nation's worth of firepower for hours. 8:44. Return fire. Target lead enemy cruisers. 8:53. Before the words had fully left her mouth, twin plasma lances ignited from the forward batteries, searing like spears of a newborn star. 8:59. They sliced through enemy hulls effortlessly, superstructures vaporized under the star-hot onslaught. 9:06, then came the antimatter warheads, each one a tiny singularity of pure annihilation. 9:12. They bloomed like black suns, devouring entire capital ships in an instant. 9:18. Not a single shot missed. The Phoenix's targeting systems, guided by AI generations ahead of anything the Vrax knew, struck with perfect accuracy. 9:25, dozens of enemy ships spiraled out of control, dark and dead in space. 9:32. For the first time, doubt pierced Grax's mind. This was just one ship. 9:38. Still, he pushed the fear down. He would outlast them. He had the numbers. 9:44. All ships, execute flanking maneuvers, surround and destroy it from every angle. 9:51. Obeying instinct, Vraxian pilots executed precise microjumps, scattering into an aggressive cloud of firepower. 10:03. But even their best coordination wasn't enough. 10:10. The Phoenix's defense systems responded instantly. Plasma and coherent energy beams were met with perfect countermeasures. 10:16. Point defense cannons fired with surgical precision, dismantling attacks before they reached the hull. 10:23. Inside the ship, the crew moved with calm synchronicity, the Phoenix almost anticipating their needs before orders were spoken. 10:30. A black obsidian sphere detached, a parasite weapon. 10:36. It absorbed incoming fire like a void, then, sated, unleashed the raw fury of hundreds of enemy weapons back at their origin. 10:43. Enemy squadrons vaporized under their own redirected firepower. The massacre was complete. 10:51, Grax howled, watching his once proud fleet torn apart, ship by ship. 10:57, few commanders in history had witnessed the total annihilation of an armada. 11:04, but even now, he refused to retreat. 11:10. Then we all go down together, he shrieked, ordering the final desperate move, supreme suicide tactics. 11:18. But before his death command could take effect, 20 more dreadnoughts decloaked across the battlefield. 11:24. It hit Grax then, cold and undeniable. Only suicide lay ahead. Surrender was the only option.